Hi, I'm Randy Wooden, and welcome to another in our Edge Library series. This time we're discussing the value of asking for a tour of the facility. Let's say you're on the interview and it kind of gets toward the end and you feel like, hey, you know what, this is going to be a good place to work. I like this. I like the job content. I like the person I'm talking with. I think they feel the same about me. So a trial close, if you will, to put my salesman's hat on for a moment, trial close, what if you were to ask a conditional question of the employer? And it would go as follows. Toward the end of the interview, you might say, I really like what we've talked about. I feel very comfortable with what you're describing and how it matches with my background. And I was wondering if I could ask a favor. And they'll say, well, what's that? And they say, well, if you feel as though I'm somebody that might be potentially a good match here, I'd like the chance at some point to get a tour of the place if that would be possible. Now, they'll either say, sure, let's do it today. They'll say, well, we'll have to set that up for another time. They might say, well, you would get that upon orientation. They might tell you, forget about it. Whatever they tell you, that sort of gives you a sense for where things stand. If they say forget about it, then you're out pretty much. Most times they'll probably say, look, we can't really work it in right now, but sure, if you come back for another interview, then we'd be happy to do that, or we can give you a tour at some point. Now, why do you need a tour? Why would that make sense? Well, for one, you want to look at the physical surroundings. If you're going to work, let's say, in a manufacturing environment, one of the things you want to look for is the upkeep of the facility. Is it in disrepair? Does it appear to be cluttered? Is it dirty? Is it unsafe or whatever? And so sometimes you can glean that visually, to look around and look at the walls, look at the ceiling, that sort of thing. You can also be observant of other places beyond getting a tour. Take a look at the front lobby. Look at the furniture. If it's all beat up and old and they don't take care of that, again, that's the first thing people see when they come into a facility. If they look at the waiting room, you go to a doctor's office, if you see the furniture's all beat up and nasty, do you really think that you want to go there? Think about it. So that's the first impression. And so when that's lousy, then that sort of says, wait a second, maybe I need to look at the bathrooms too, or do they look reasonably clean? Again, this goes back to that whole housekeeping thing, not necessarily the safety issue, but the time, the money that they spend and devote to keeping their area clean. But here's something else that, and I use the example of a Walmart or a Target or any store, and I've used this example many times. You ever have a time where you're pushing your shopping cart and you're at the end of an aisle and you look down that aisle and you see somebody down that aisle that you don't want to talk to? For whatever reason. Could be because they'll talk your ear off and you don't have half an hour to sit there and listen to their kids and everything else going on in their life. Or it could be somebody that you've had maybe words with, or there's some issues, there's some history there, and it just would be a little less comfortable for you. And so it's easier just to kind of move down that next aisle and not have to actually come face to face with that individual. For whatever reason, it's happened. I've done it. I've probably had it done to me. It just happens. Those things happen. Now, if I'm going on a plant tour, and I used to do this back years ago when I was a headhunter, one of the best things I could do is to be able to sell that company to a candidate. I'd love to be able to say, you know what, I've been on a tour, I've met the leadership of the organization, and I can tell you here, based on my experience, this is what I found. Well, when I'd go on a tour, one of the things I'd look for is to see whether the boss's words matched the atmosphere that existed. And if you know what I mean, when you're going down, let's say you are the visitor and you're standing next to the manager and the two of you are walking through a facility, again, whether it's a large office, whether it's a manufacturing environment, whatever. As you're making that path through there, you know and I know the workers in the office or in that area, they see that management is coming. Now, there's a choice to be made. As management draws closer to those people, do the people just sort of scatter and go off to the side and pretend as though they don't even see the boss? Or do they turn, face the boss, and the boss speaks not only to say hello, but even perhaps calling that person by their name and maybe even engaging them in a superficial couple sentence here and there back and forth? That says a lot. It really does, because I've seen and I've been in situations where when we walk through, the seas part That's not a good sign. It doesn't mean I can't do the job, doesn't mean I don't want the job. What it means possibly is that the line that I'm hearing from that manager may not be the true story. And so do keep that in mind. It's part of that intangible. It's part of what you look at when you talk about an atmosphere. Also, listen for the words they use. Do they say words such as, well, my people, those people, them, they, that kind of thing, instead of the we and team, that sort of stuff. So a mindset, sure, but also when you get out on the floor and you're walking that aisle in Walmart, you know exactly what I mean. Be aware of that. That's sort of your radar that says this may not always be what I'm hearing. Hope that helps you a little bit. That's going to wrap it up for this in our Edge Library series, dealing with that question that comes into play about can I get a tour and what goes on behind that and why do I want a tour and that sort of thing. Hope it's been helpful. I'm Randy Wooden. Thanks for watching.